Good morning, you guys. I hope you're doing well. So today I want to make a video on vegetative propagation, on taking cuttings. This time of year it is the fig tree that is just so prime and probably the easiest to start with. So if you're going to propagate anything, start with figs. There's so much moisture in that stem. The buds this time of year are just fully swollen and primed and ready to go, and so that's probably the easiest, and we learn best when we have success that we can build on. So start with fig, but don't be afraid of going after mulberry or pomegranate as being pretty similar. So the reason we're doing the video now is because now is the time of year to do it. When a tree goes dormant in the winter, it's taking all of its energy out of its leaves to let them go, and it's putting that energy into the stems, and so the stems have more energy for healing and putting out roots and regrowing. And then in particular, this time of year is just a naturally expansive time of year. So we're going to capture, this energy of spring and this, energy in the cuttings themselves, which is already kind of started for that process of expansion. And so that's going to help us to be successful as well. I need to open this area up, so I naturally have some cuttings to take. So pruning this time of year is also something that should be done. Late winter pruning is just so normal and natural. So you're going to have these trimmings. You can share them with others or turn them into new fruit trees. So here are the cuttings. Actually the glare looks pretty bad. Hopefully that's better. So here are some typical trimmings of fig, and a lot of this branching is just perfect for propagation. So I would say this is a pretty decent, ideal fig cutting. The terminal buds are most successful, so this is your best chance of getting new regrowth. You want nice, straight, vigorous shoots, not the kind of old, twisted stuff from the interior, but kind of like water sprout stuff that has vigor. And then you want fig cuttings to be as thick as possible because, well, on the thick side, because all of that thickness is actually moisture and energy that can help them heal. So I have rooted. It's just as easy to root. Fig is the exception here. Older, much thicker stem and trunk pieces, they also can root. It's more about whether or not they have big open wounds that might compromise their integrity. But if it's a nice straight piece like this piece down here, this is absolutely just as viable a cutting as a smaller one. So you don't have to avoid thicker pieces. With some other trees and other species you do, because that wood is more brittle, more it's less adaptive. It doesn't have that vigor of youth. So here's fig cutting, and you're going to watch me go for 6 to 10 inches. It really depends on how you're going to root them. So if I am rooting in a deeper pot, I might take 1.5 foot long cuttings, 2-foot cuttings. If I'm just doing them in like gallon pots, I might do this size, or if I'm doing them in 4-inch pots, I would definitely shoot for more like 6 inches. It just depends on what you're going to root them out in. So when you take most cuttings, you're looking for the number of buds. Now with these figs, it's really clear we're going to get growth on the tip. But with mulberry or with pomegranate, or really with anything you might try, you might be getting growth out of a lateral bud. And so it's important to check and see that the buds that you expect the growth to come out of, to see that they're good, like they're viable, they're not been chewed off by a grasshopper, and that they're maybe even starting to swell or have swollen. And then the other thing is that some plants can root anywhere along a wound. So you can, scratch a stem and it'll kind of trigger that healing and regrowth. Others root best at nodes. So if you see right here, I don't know, that joint where a leaf used to be, that's called a node. And a lot of plants naturally have roots, kind of latent roots, buried at the nodes that are ready to shoot out, kind of like the first place for the roots to come out of. So it's good to have at least one node under the soil as well. So it depends on the node spacing. Here, one node and one node, they're pretty far apart. I'd have to go in a deep pot to get 2 nodes under. So whatever it is you're propagating, try and get one node under the soil, Try and get really good buds on top. Try and get straight, vigorous growth, more like this one than this one. And then kind of the last thing is the wounding. So you really got to know your material before you go after that scratch move I did. So on fig, it does, heal well. It has just so much moisture inside of it that a little bit of a scratch on the bark can help trigger some healing and more roots. However, on other plants, it might open it up to infection more. So it really depends on their resiliency. So if you're not sure, try without scratching and try with scratching, and then see, because it really will be more influenced by the sterility of your media and also your irrigation for your cuttings, your practices, like if you're a little on the wet side, or or trying to do it more like hands off, let it go. Those are some main things that I can think of right now. I'm going to take these fig cuttings and I'm going to put them all close together in a pot. And the reason I'm doing that is just for space efficiency and management efficiency. There is no right way to harden off or heal cuttings. You can have a nursery setting where it's humidity controlled and they get automatic irrigation, or if you're like me, you can have a pot that you put in an ideal spot. You basically are looking for a space where they are not going to get intense sunlight, which would dry them out. It kind of is a harsh energy, but at the same time you want them to get enough light that they can still be invigorated and triggered to grow and heal. And so you're looking for an area of part sun, of high filtered light, of just light shade, and in that location the healing really takes place best. So out here where I am right now, I actually have that. See, I have high fertility soil right here underneath me. It's kind of sandy, composty. I have a bit of filtered light because I have tree canopy that's going to come in and heal, and I have this elderberry casting a really nice shade in that area especially. And so I'm going to stick some of these fatter stem cuttings just right here, and that will be our experiment. You can come back if you're watching videos and we'll see how they do. And the reason I want to do that, or the reason I'm inspired to share that, is because this entire tree right behind me was planted as a cutting in place. So this was planted from a fig branch that a neighbor cut and threw out by the curb, and I was like, oh, that can grow. And I came over here and I stuck like 3 or 4 of them in the ground right under an old a nectarine tree that was planted here. I've since removed it, and so all of them took. I removed the others 3 just for competition's sake, and so this entire tree that makes really big, beautiful figs was just essentially a branch about this thickness shoved into the ground. So it is that easy, and if you have extra branches, extra cuttings, then absolutely give it a try. What you've seen in this video is that it's good to do a bunch of them, because not all of them will be successful, not all of them will take. So rather than putting tons and tons of energy to get 100% of your cuttings to root, it is way, way, way more efficient to just double the number of cuttings you take. And that's how it is across the industry. We're trying to make our systems efficient and learn each plant and how their needs are, this and that, but at the same time, if you just take more of them, you'll get that feedback. You'll get more feedback about what the plant is capable of and how it'll do the best. So here are the fig cuttings in their location where they're going to undergo healing and growing. This receives no direct sunlight because of the sun angle, because we're winter, and it does receive really high light levels though, so that will help them. And then you can see there's a bucket on top of these guys back here, and I just wanted to put that on to show you guys that humidity is an issue, and if you wanted like gallon jugs of water from the store, cut the tops off of those, you could flip that, put it over the cuttings, and that would increase your success rate because it would keep the cuttings from drying out. So they don't necessarily need it. If you especially keep them close to ground level, there's more humidity. Like in a semi-shaded spot, there's more humidity. Those kind of factors are also really important. And then this is just a bunch of Pakistan mulberry. We shall see, because it was already budding out, but I had to do some trimming. Here are a few more figs to show you. These are fig cuttings that were taken last fall. So the same sort of process, except the cuttings were not fully dormant, and because of that, the cuttings had leaves left on them. Leaf surface area will really help with healing. It just can't be too much that it dries out the cutting. So figs are possible any time of year. Mulberry is possible any time of year. Even pomegranate, they're all possible any time of year, but ideally now is a good time before their buds break. There are plenty of other figs just a little bit older. Some are a little stunted and small in their pots. These are all dormant, but these are just a year past what those were over there. So I think these are 2 years old from the cuttings. This is a Smith fig that a friend gave me, and most of these others are LSU Gold, I think. So it's a good time for them to be dormant because we're about to get hit with a rockin' freeze. I've got these that are awkward and big, and they're going in the ground right there under that elderberry as part of our experiment. So I hope you enjoyed this video, hope you got something out of it. Definitely start experimenting with propagation, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.